throughout the story. Like if you guys look at the PDF file and stuff, he has art images of some of the events that's going on throughout the story. It's actually really good.
You showed off one a while back of the mouse riding its steed, so to say.
Well, no, the Glimmerleaf riding her mouse. Well,
that is in the PDF along with I believe an extra 4 other art images for people to enjoy. It's all in the PDF. It's a free download, so people can enjoy that if you don't just want to read right off of this. And it's a lovely formatted PDF. So it's not just an audio story, but something for you to read along with. A lovely digital gift from me to you this Christmas.
I honestly think what you should do, because you got so many short stories, is compile them and get them all published into a
collection.
I thought about that, but they're a bit too diverse in genre right now. They need more
cohesion.
Yes, more cohesion between them. They're very diverse in genre.
There are some that do that, and I've read some. Some of those are more enjoyable because after a while, like if you're reading a themed collection, it kind of gets very samey after a while, even if it's written by very different people.
It's like my first story is a kingdom under attack, swords and sandals fantasy. And then my second story is a cyberpunk bank robbing story. And yet they take place in the same world. How? That's because my world is exactly a world without end, and it's tied very well together, I think, and it's all tied through the one thing that actually brings us all together and keeps us all apart: prejudice.
There you go.
Their belly buttons look different than mine. We can't associate.
I think
Also,
Royce touched on.
I like to do ASMR on accident.
Royce touched on this on Sunday. He had that one comment saying that you got to write a good story first before you build the world. And it's like, no, you don't. You got to have your world and then pull the stories from it. James is a perfect example of that.
Well, I think both can
world
work.
set up.
Some people go story first and let the world kind of expand out from that. Some people go setting first. And
yeah,
I mean, it's a tricky business. You can easily kind of go down several rabbit holes while no story comes out of it. But the idea is you're kind of taking one idea, building a setting around it, and you don't have everything, but you answer so many questions, and all of a sudden a story starts forming in your head. You go from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened with me anyway.
I think the problem with starting with an idea and building a world around it is that you can find yourself wanting to do something like world building wise, and then finding out that like you've restricted yourself because you originally started off with one story and the world built around that.
See, I was lucky. I had the idea for the world in my head long before Haley was a thought. So that made it easy. I already knew most of the rules. I mean, a lot of them had to get tweaked as I wrote, and I figured out exactly how everything was going to be. But for years, I drove around doing deliveries, just from taking all these different ideas. I'm like, how would it all fit together? And I built a physics system in my own head. I never even had thought or intended to do anything with it. It was just ideas in my head, and so when the idea for Haley came along, I already had a world for her to play in.
Well, yeah, Wrangler. I read the opening for your second book there on that reading stream a while back, or no, that's actually on your stream a while back.
Yeah,
and it was very creative. It felt very genuine. It felt very original, but also obviously pulling from a lot of different kind of known areas of mythology and history. I thought it was really, really cool. I'm like, he's clearly thought about this setting quite a bit. Like he's gone down the rabbit holes.
Yeah,
in this venture.
When you spend years behind the wheel by yourself and your mind gets hooked on stuff, it turns into things like this.
And yeah, I used to do that too, but and then I discovered audiobooks. I'm like, okay, while I'm driving for hours a day, I can get a lot of books read. Any supremacist. Or it's like that episode of Rick and Morty. We have regular nipples. Kill them.
But yeah, like Kahuna, you were talking a little bit about how stories can get a little restrictive, like if you come up with a different story for a world. That's why I think some of the best settings out there, they'll go with a very simple idea, but it's like different stories, hell, even different series, kind of go at different angles with it. Like Star Wars is literally just, what if you had magic and wizards in space? That's literally it. It's asking that one question and just running with it.
And as we know, every Star Wars writer has done a great job in that world that they've made. Every single one.
That said, some
James,
settings.
You seen what Herman's got down there?
Let me go ahead and read this.
He says, "I'm very serious when I say that Glimmerleaf story could easily be traditionally published middle grade story. You should seriously consider taking that character to make a book."
Oh, thank you, Herman.
I agree. I mean, Glimmerleaf, you have her beginning, that first little part, gives her a goal, gives her a chapter. You're going to extend on her story because you literally end it on a cliffhanger. I bet you if you were to take all of her story completely written out, it could easily make a young adult novella or even a children's novella.
Well, thank you. I'll definitely have to think about that. Maybe take it. I'm take all these comments seriously. But for sure, that's the interesting thing is not all these characters come back and affect the world in some way or actually populated in it. And I think what I like about Glimmerleaf is it actually does combine the fantastical with the hard science fiction pretty well once the contact is made in the third act there. I'm not sure. I'd love to see what people think about the story as a whole, those who have never read it before. I'd love to
not only that, but you even tiptoe into the horror genre.
Indeed, you're right. Yeah, with the villain, if you will, with the villain. There's a lot there. I don't want to spoil any of it, but for anybody who hasn't checked it out, please, I'd love to get your opinions. You can find me on the Guilded.
I hope I didn't spoil anything.
I don't think you have at all because no, you haven't. It's great.
No, this is just a genre.
That's the thing I like about horror is you can, depending on the context of the story, you can make and the way you write it, you can make anything seem horrifying, depending on the context of the story. And this character being small enough to ride a mouse, a lot of things that are very ordinary to someone like you or I could turn into a horror story for a creature that small.
Absolutely.
I'm getting flashbacks to the Littles, the show I used to watch when I was a kid.
and that was kind of it, as I wanted to take this very classical and lovely and kind-hearted creature and put him in like a dark area and give him a grand task. Thank you, Herman. That's actually a lot of praise, and I really appreciate it. Coming from a great author like Herman here. I've read both your books, got them on audiobook. Great things.
That brings up something else too. That's something I'm going to challenge more people to do in this next year for those who have published works and or the interest. We need more audiobooks in the Iron Age because it's a tremendous market out there because there's a lot of Iron Age stories kind of appeal to a more masculine kind of fit person. And a lot of men like to listen to audiobooks. I feel like there's a missing kind of link there.
Well, that's what I'm learning from Royce and even here in Wrangler. So they don't really have the time to sit down and read a book, especially during the day job. They drive around a lot during the day. That's a perfect time to just have an audiobook and listen to a story.
Hell, when I was beta reading Wrangler's book, yes, I'm Wrangler's beta. I'm sorry. But when I was beta reading Wrangler's book, when I didn't have time to actually read, because I have a voice AI for my
Microsoft 360.
Yeah, I use the voice AI to read back to me to make sure things are all right. So I had made that read it to me, and then when something felt wrong, I paused it, went back and reread it. so that I could make sure that I was covering Wrangler's book thoroughly.
There you go.
Yeah, because when you're listening along and you have an italics and you have an italics to convey it's being thought instead of spoken, and then when you're in that mode, the you can't distinguish the italics as clearly from the regular text when you're in that read mode. And so she's like, "You're missing quotes here. You're missing quotes here." I'm like,
Nope.
I know the screen she was on, so the italics does not stand out so well when you're in that read out loud mode.
Yeah, but it also helped too because I was following, like, there were some parts where I was following along and reading at the same time to make sure the voice and stuff were. I was very thorough with making sure Wrangler's book sounded good.
And
it's good,
and it was a help,
smart.
definitely. Because a few times it was like, oh yeah, I did screw up there. She caught a few of them. Garham caught a few too, of course. And then Gino, aka King Bob, he
King really, Bob's invaluable.
Yeah, he helped me get so much polish on that. It's like there are scenes where, when you're writing something, you have the scene in your head. So you tend to fill in blanks in your own mind when you're reading what you wrote, thinking, oh, it's obvious because you thought it up. But someone who didn't have that in their head is going to read it and there are details missing you just don't realize. And then something as simple as a deputy taking a chair from in front of his desk and moving it over in front of the sheriff's desk to give one of the girls another seat. I screwed up the wording on that so bad it looked like he pulled a chair out from the wall or something stupid. I don't know. It was like, you got to fix that. I went back and read it. I'm like, oh, yeah.
He obviously took the chair out of the wall actively.
He
didn't say out of the wall, but I mean, it seemed, I wrote it so wonky it was bad. And he was like, dude, fix that.
Well, to be fair, Wrangler, trying to self-edit your own writing, most people, it takes a lot of work to learn how to do that. Most people need another set of eyes at least.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
It's real easy if you're self-editing to kind of go in this spiral where you're always editing something. It's never good enough. And it's 9 times out of 10, in my opinion, it's best to have at least one other person take a look at it.
Yeah, just the way you word things is different from other people. So it's subjective in that nature, and if you're always approved of your own subjective wording, you're going to like it all the time, but other people may not understand it. It needs to be more objective, so you need more people seeing it.
Well, in the case of King Bob or Gino, sorry, not trippy. I didn't.
No, go ahead.
In the case of King Bob and Gino, or Gino, I call him Gino, but for him, I hired him to help me with my proofreading. Because he's very grounded, where I am very imaginative. So when I write, it's very imagery, very whatnot. And Gino's like, why? Just say this. So we actually balanced each other out. And when this thing is finally done, I'm going to give him credit. He's not quite a co-writer, but pretty damn close. He is definitely going to get something in the thank you page.
That's why I keep saying developmental editor.
Betas in the back.
I did.
Hail Swords and Starships in the chat. He says, ahoy and Merry Christmas all. Thank you, Captain
Christmas?
Garrett. Yeah, and guys,
Merry Christmas.
I got to put his link in the chat. Swords and Starships. He has an excellent channel. His Sunday streams on at 4 p.m. Eastern. It usually starts. He puts on an excellent show, and it's a lot of fun. You got to check that out. I'll drop the link.
That man has far more stamina than I see most other streamers have. Like, he can go 4 hours, no problem. Typically,
I think he did, 5 yesterday?
Yes, close to it.
Bye.